Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for our Village of Alsip committee meeting. Today is May 13th, 2024, and we'll call this meeting order at 7:31 p.m. You can call the roll, please.
Trustee Dalzell?
Here.
Trustee Juarez Mendoza is absent. Trustee McLaughlin? Here. Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Trustee Navas Barza?
Here.
Trustee Peretta is absent. Mayor Ryan?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Trustees, before we get to all of our reports, I'd like to go out of line. We got some people in the audience tonight, and want to be certainly cognizant of their time being with us here, and thank you for joining us tonight. So I'm going to skip around a little bit for different topics. First on your agenda this evening, real quick too, I just want to get in here. I want to thank everybody that helped out this past Saturday with our village-wide cleanup day. Had a great turnout, had a lot of volunteers, and most notably Coca-Cola sent out almost 25 volunteers this year. And Mike Freder and Public Works, Mike, thanks for your assistance this season as well, yet too. And White Castle, they had their management team out, and for the most part, the village was actually pretty clean. It wasn't too bad. So I drove around 3 times last week looking for garbage, and it's there, but I think the couple of spots that we got to look at, Mike, and I'll talk more with you about it. Like there were just some really high traffic areas where it just wasn't easy to access, like near the viaduct on 111th Street. That's not an easy one to work with over there. And I didn't want to put anybody in harm's way or anything like that, but I physically did the medians myself out on 127th and Cicero, and that's a heck of a walk when you get on there like at Impel Union all the way to 127th Street. That's 4 blocks one way, so you got the 4 blocks coming back in too, dragging a bunch of garbage behind you. And sure enough, man, got the trophy again. Somebody always throws out a dirty diaper out there, You can't get it every year. Just every year, somebody gets the trophy. So anyway, I want to thank Coca-Cola, White Castle, and the Guild House for sending out volunteers. Thank you very much for helping out this year. First on your agenda this evening was a discussion regarding the property owner and need to develop 4.5 acres at 4555 West 127th Street in Alsip. I brought this up a few weeks ago to some of the trustees that were in attendance. Jim's with us tonight, Jim Persino, the property owner. Jim, I put into a packet, Jim didn't see it, but Jim sent us an overview of the developer's plans that he has for the Quick Trip. Was looking at this property to develop a fueling center at that location. This has been going on for a couple of years now that we've been working with this. Both the Village Planning Commission gave a positive recommendation for a fueling center at that location. The Village Board did the same thing a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, there's an access problem that they're having over there where IDOT, and I actually met about a month ago or so, about 6 weeks ago, I met with the secretary from IDOT, so the top person with IDOT, to discuss this as well too. Right now, they allowed this particular property to get a right-in, right-out access off 127th Street. Mr. Versino had an agreement from over 20 years ago from a previous development that IDOT doesn't want to agree with at this time. And they wanted cooperation from the neighbor to the east, which is a church. What I gave the board, I gave a brief summary that I offered a few weeks ago when I first brought this up, was to say that back in November of 21, because that's when this discussion started. That was even just before we approved the special use aspect of this yet too. I met with the church and to discuss the fueling center, and the church was not inclined to agree with this development because they like the property as well, but they weren't willing to pay what your person wants to pay and stuff then, too. Soon after that, in April of '22, the property owner, Mr. Persino, the village of Alsip, we offered to facilitate a meeting with the church and the property owners, but that didn't come to fruition at all. As I said, I met with the pastor in the meantime and was interested in it. And then in May of '22, again, we tried to discuss easements, and we didn't get any cooperation. So that said, I mean, I know we've talked about this for many times, so I don't want to just talk in circles, but Mr. Pacino's here tonight. Jim, did you want to offer more to the conversation? Yeah, go ahead. Go up to this mic up here, please, okay?
Thank you, Jim Persino, First Development. I own the property personally. No other investors. I'm not a big company. I'm a little guy, and trying to get through this deal and get it done and bring some quality development to the city. Did everybody get the thing that my attorney sent to the mayor and village attorney? It said request for village assistance for the quick trip. You've all seen that? I brought extra copies in case you didn't. And I'm assuming you all got the fiscal impact sheet showing what.
Yeah, they've all got that,
They
yes.
got that, okay. I brought those just in case they didn't have them. I've got a few things that I wanted to add. I think the mayor's done a pretty good job of the oversight. But there's a number of things. First of all, I'm 74 years old. I'm going to be 75. I'd like to retire at some point. I was hoping this deal was going to get done sooner, and I really can't. I can't do that until this deal is done. I've done everything. If you read the request for assistance, I've done everything the village has asked for the last 3 mayors for owning this property for almost 4 decades. I've assembled it. I've vacated street as requested. I bought the former Speedway station as the village requested. I do. So pretty much, you know, I've cleared the site so that anybody could see what the site looked like. It used to be a fully wooded site. You couldn't see the tollway from 127th Street until I did that, and I was encouraged to clear it so that potential users could see what the value of the property is and what the exposure is on the tollway. That's been done. I've been keeping the property clean, keeping it up to date. I think I've said this before at a previous meeting, and in the time I've owned this property, I've paid over $1 million in real estate taxes on this piece of property. The mayor already mentioned that the Planning and Zoning Commission already unanimously recommended the project and the use and the site plan, and the village board approved the use and the site plan unanimously. I wanted to point out that on that site plan that the village board approved was the access. The access is shown exactly where it was supposed to be, which was the same access agreement I had with IDOT when they condemned part of the property to put the 127th Street ramps in over 20 years ago. IDOT has ultimately, through consultants hired by Quick Trip, agreed that the access, they would then actually enforce the agreement that I had with them from 20 years ago. They thought it pertained to a particular project back then. There was no project back then. It was strictly a matter of the settlement of the condemnation case against the property. And I said I wouldn't accept just cash unless they also gave me an agreement that it would be I'd have full access on 127th Street. And I was negotiating with Martin Oil at the time before they sold the property to the church. And Martin and I agreed that we would put that access to 127th Street on or near the border between our 2 properties, part on my property, part on their property, and we're still willing to do that. It doesn't have to all be on the church property. In approving that site plan, in my mind, it's that the board tacitly approved the location of that access, and so I'm looking for support to get that access because, as the mayor said, there's been lack of cooperation from the church hierarchy. Also, when those hearings were heard, all the notices were sent out and were properly made as required by your codes. So the church got copies of those notices, and they did not appear at either the Plan Commission or the Village Board to make any comment about the property, about the project. I'm a little concerned because it seems like the church keeps getting a benefit, and every time I turn around, I get sort of a little bit of a blockade. Over the last 3 mayors, all of whom have encouraged me to continue to do whatever I can do to assemble the property, to move it forward, to try to bring a quality development into town, which I think I've now done with the Quick Trip proposal. But the church, you know, comes in here and did a number of things, which all 3 mayors, this information was provided by various of the mayors, that they came in when they got the building. Originally, they started remodeling the building without a permit. Ultimately, obviously, that was corrected. They did get the permit. They started building their new sanctuary steel structure, putting the steel structure up with no permit. Had to have it stopped and had to get a permit. They extended a water main, which they made into a dead-end water main, which, according to EPA and your staff here has told me, that is a dangerous water main because it can create all kinds of health issues because the water isn't, the main's not looped and it can't be, it's not circulating. They never gave the village an easement either to be able to work on that main if it was needed. And the main to this day stays as a dead-end main, which, by the way, Quick Trips is willing to loop as part of the project to solve that problem. They started the parking lots on the front of the property, ultimately without permits. I understand they ultimately did then get permits. And they also recently installed an electric car charging station with no permits. So they've pretty much done everything the wrong way, in my opinion, and over the many years. And I'm just looking for, you know, some assistance here. I've been trying to be a good corporate citizen and tried to maintain and develop this property and bring something quality to the village, and I'm just hoping that the village would provide the needed assistance in order to get the access that's needed and the one utility easement along the southern boundary of the property, which, frankly, in looking at your ordinances, should have occurred a long time ago with whatever was done by the church under other permits, because your code does require that one property connects utility access to the adjacent 2 properties, and there is no utility easement across the southern border of that property, so access to the sanitary and storm sewer can't be obtained without getting that easement and, you know, put in place for anybody that wants to develop the property that I own.
So the crux of, certainly, because Jim, when we heard everything prior, even a few years ago when we approved all this, obviously, let's go back to the crux of what the issue is here. The issue is getting a full access drive, because right now, whether it's Quick Trips Fueling Center or it's a, you know, 5-star hotel, nobody can make a left-hand turn into this property, and nobody's making a left turn to get out of that property either, because of what IDOT has decided with the right-in, right-out, right? I mean, that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, I
so,
mean, we do have a right in, right out. That's not a problem. I actually, after I bought, before I bought the Speedway station, the Speedway was operating, and IDOT's ramps had already gone in. So, and Speedway had 2 full access driveways on 127th Street while they were operating. IDOT did not take them away from them. As soon as I bought the property after Speedway closed the station, IDOT comes to me and says, you can't have those as full access anymore because it's too close to their stoplight at the intersection. So we had it, and then they took it away, and then now then they ultimately, as I said, agreed that if we put the 127th Street access where the church westernmost driveway is, again, either on part of my property and the church property, or all on the church property, whatever, in that location, they agreed that they would allow that to continue to be a full access.
Right.
And the church has 2 full access driveways out to 127th Street, and the village obtaining this access that we need would in no way be detrimental to the church. They would continue to use the same access. They would not be in any way deprived of any use of the property. They would be in no way diminished on their
Actually, the church, Jim, they got full access at the property line that we're talking about where we meet your property, The other one is a right-in, right-out. Regardless of how they striped it, that's on them.
I'm
But-
saying, but if you look on the map, I've seen cars go in and out of there both ways.
I get it, but in other
It's supposed to
words-
be, but there's no pork chop there.
Understood, but that's what I'm saying, that's, in other words, the state obviously didn't enforce that and stuff
Right.
then, too.
Yeah, that's
But
my
no,
point.
regardless of how they striped it, that's only a right-in, right-out. I looked at that a few years ago, Roger, I think we looked at that. So, going back to, I want to standpoint here is, what, the problem that we're having here is, like I said, I met with the Secretary of IDOT, and what IDOT's position is they're saying, like, it's, I really had to understand them better, because he had his whole legal team with him, he had the attorneys and everybody else, to say that this isn't, it's more than just because what you proposed 20 years ago didn't get developed. It's more so the case now that they're looking at cooperation from the church at a minimum, because what they're looking at is the frequency of traffic from what would have been a hotel versus a fueling center, because you're talking double, triple the volume of traffic coming and going. And because it's so close to the on-ramp, the turning light, I should say, to access 294 to Indiana, is why they're like, well, at the very minimum, we need cooperation
let me
from the
object to one
church.
thing.
Yeah, I can't think.
Quick Trip did a traffic study.
Right.
The interpretation IDOT made of the original proposal from 20 years ago was 2 hotels on 127th Street on the frontage, on lots A and B that were called A and B,
Right.
which is now the parking lot of the church, and a hotel on my property, and perhaps a restaurant on my property.
I'm just telling you what they told me.
No,
I
what
met
I'm
with them
saying- what I'm
6
saying,
weeks
though, is
ago.
their traffic study, which they submitted to IDOT, shows that the traffic generated from that proposed development is significantly greater than the traffic that would be developed by the Quick Trip development to be put in today.
Okay. I'm just reiterating
They've
what
submitted
the
that to IDOT,
conversation
so
I had.
IDOT's aware of that traffic study, and it's done by a firm that IDOT respects and usually agrees with.
All right, so what I had said, I have one more board member than I had last time we met, and that's why I was hoping to get more board members in the House. I know we've got somebody that's on vacation and other matters here yet, too. So with at least 4 board members in the House, I have to ask the question, too, is we're basically, Jim, let's put it this way, we got our back, you have your back against the wall. We sympathize with the situation, and if this board wants to help, we've indicated that on many occasions yet, too. But I think the bottom line, go ahead, you can tell the board what your ask.
Let me finish a couple of statements, if I may.
All right, if you would, please, because I got other business.
Then we'll get
here,
right
too.
to the crux of it. I also wanted to bring up, and you may not be aware of this, and I brought a copy of it with me today. I obtained an originally signed and stamped survey prepared by the surveyor that Martin used back in 2001. The survey does not say proposed anywhere on the survey. It says that there's a 51-foot roadway easement in the area of the westernmost driveway of the church, and that there's a 20-foot utility easement across the southern border of the property. And on the survey, it states, and I quote, "Building lines and easements are shown only where they are so recorded in the maps." I called the surveyor and said, "Do you have the backup for that?" And they said, "You have to call Martin Oil." So they're putting that off. But meanwhile, the survey says it exists, and nothing on it says proposed. How that survey got done, if there's no backup for it, I have no clue. But that is a little perplexing, because I've never seen a surveyor do a survey like that unless he specifically said to be dedicated or proposed or whatever. And this one is a pure survey that says it's as of record. I can give you a copy of it if you want to have your staff look into it. I've met personally twice with Bishop Dan Willis in his office to discuss this. Pleasant guy, cordial guy, but he's got a different agenda. And he made it very clear to me, and by the way, we offered him we proposed if he would do a private agreement between 2 property owners, they and me, we would pay them $350,000 for that privilege, and they would provide the access or agree to the access and agree to the easement. And I said, in talking with Quick Trip, Quick Trip even said to me, they might even go up to $500,000 for that agreement. The pastor said he wouldn't do it for any amount of money. And he made it clear to me that the reason he wouldn't is because he wants to build another sanctuary on that property, and he can't do it without my property to meet the parking requirement of your local codes. And so he basically said to me, I'll do anything I can to stop that from happening because I want your property and I want you to sell it to me. And I've offered to sell it to him. He won't pay the price. He won't pay what the market is for the property. Not even close. Roughly half is what he wants to pay for the property. So I've tried my best to be cordial with him and meet with him, and we prayed together in his office, and it's still nothing's happened because that's what his goal is. He really has his eyes set on owning that property at some point in time. At prior meetings with Mayor Ryan, you also had said to me, remember when we first got into this project in 21 with Quick Trip, and with Quick Trip there, you said that you didn't think this board would ever vote to change the zoning to allow church use or to take it off the tax rolls.
We certainly encourage, resources to help the taxpayer at all times. So I can't, again, I vote in the event of a tie, Mr. Persino.
I don't know. I know that's not a statement to hang your hat on.
But
it's a statement that we'd like to see something happen with the property, and we'd like to help if we can. That's how I looked at it.
Right.
And the other thing, and this was in the package that I sent out, the long 4-page deal on my request for assistance. Also, Quick Trip will pay for everything in this regard. They'll pay for, if this has to go to eminent domain, they will pay for the village's legal fees. They will pay for the actual installation of the road if it becomes a public road, and they will build it beyond the specifications of what your code currently requires for a public roadway, because they want the road to be stronger and last longer for their traffic, and they will maintain it in perpetuity so long as they operate a facility from the property that they want to build on here. They even agreed to snowplow it and even snowplow the entire church parking lot. And we told for as long as they own the property, and the pastor said that wasn't going to make a difference either. So they will basically, the village would not be out of pocket any money in this regard. The other thing is Quick Trip is asking for no assistance from the village. They're not asking for a TIF. They're not asking for a special service area. They're not asking to share sales taxes. They're not asking for any incentive payments or bonds or anything. They're willing to do this as a straight-up development transaction out of their pocket. And their deal with me is that if this had to go to the village taking action in order to acquire the street and the easement, once the village board agreed to do that, Quick Trip will close with me. They will take the risk that whether or not, if it goes to eminent domain, that it could take 2 years or 18 months or whatever for a judge to bang the gavel and say, that's yes in favor of the property or in favor of the church. And Quick Trip's willing to take that risk. But I'd be out of it, and you'd be dealing with a very deep-pocketed development company that owns over 900 of these facilities across the country and has the financial wherewithal to carry this as far as they need to carry it, and they're willing to do that.
Mayor, I have some comments, if I may.
Pardon me?
I have some comments that I...
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Just 3 things that come to mind. I know that there was a lot of information that was shared via email and other correspondence, and then you presenting, thank you for your time. But just 3 items that come to mind immediately are, one, there seems that there's a number of legal issues that are still kind of not resolved, if I'm not mistaken. Also, property rights, the other party involved as well, they have ownership rights as well, and it seems that there isn't an agreement handing over their share of their parcel. And 3 is, how is the village now a party to this issue? Or you mentioned eminent domain. Is that the ask of the village?
What we're basically saying is that because there are 2 property owners that can't reach an agreement, the village would be the mediating factor. You would be looked at as a positive of bringing 2 property owners together to make something happen that's profitable and important to the village for financially. So that's how we're looking at it. If it's a project you want, that's the only thing that Quick Trip and I are asking from the village.
So in other words, Trustee, and that's what I had brought up. You might not have been here a few weeks ago when I brought this up, but That would be, even like an ask tonight, we can ask for a consensus whether or not we wish to have our attorneys start looking into the possibility of utilizing the court system to obviously attain that property.
But it just seems looking from the outside.
To obtain the access and the easement.
Right.
It looks like we're just infringing on the church's right to the use of their property, how they see fit. And even though they're not a tax, they're a nonprofit and so forth, they're still a public institution that does a lot of good in the community as well. So I don't want to diminish that either. I know they host a number of food pantries and so forth like that, and other public acts that they do. So I think that the village should also be very careful how we approach this as well. It seems that the two parties need to come to an agreement on their own, and I'm not sure if it's our role as the village to do this.
Understood. So at this,
But I want to emphasize the fact that even if the village used eminent domain to obtain the access and the easements, the church would in no way be diminished from their access and use of the property. Matter of fact, if the road went partly on my property and partly on the village, on the church property, the church would actually end up with a little bit more property that they could develop into parking if they needed it, because they would have, say, 17 or 20 feet on my property and, 40 feet or whatever on their property. It would
But if they were in
it would
agreement-
actually move the driveway to the west.
But if they were in agreement, they would have been already, a deal would have been made already, if they were
Well,
in
the reason
favor
that
of
I'm
that.
standing here is because they aren't in agreement, and we need the village to step in and make it happen or not. And we've had meetings with the church. They're not budging. And that's why we're looking for municipal participation to make it happen. We think it's, I've worked very hard to bring a project of quality to this town, and been a good taxpayer and steward of this property for, like I said, almost 40 years. And originally, when we first met with Mayor Ryan, he thought the same thing, that he would be able to bring the pastor to the table, and that we'd get this agreement done probably over 2 years ago. And, that's not happening.
right.
And if it gets to the point, and I'll say this publicly, I will never sell that property to the church if this doesn't happen. And I'll put it in my will when I die to tell my family that they are not allowed to sell it to a not-for-profit. And unfortunately, at that point, maybe that'll bring him to the table. But I have not said that to him yet, but I'm prepared to say it because he's delayed this deal so long and cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars in the 2 years that this has taken to try to get to fruition.
So at this time, I'd like to, at least, because we're going to give if it's the wish of the board to pursue this, utilizing our court system to get those easement rights to what needs to take place to build a road between these two properties at the lot line, Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask for a consensus to ask that, does this village board wish to have our attorney engage and start the necessary legal action to attain that, help attain that property?
Okay.
Okay.
Roll call number 1 for consensus, trustee Dalzell.
No.
Trustee Juarez Mendoza is absent. Trustee McLaughlin.
No.
Trustee Murphy.
No.
Trustee Navas Barza.
No.
And trustee Peretta is absent, so consensus does not carry.
All right, so Jim, at this time, we don't have any, we do not have a positive recommendation to have our attorney pursue this action at this time. I know you've got attorneys looking at this as well then too.
Yep.
But I want to give you some direction as far as, wherever you wish to do next. But the board is not going to take action on this particular, utilizing the court system to get that property to build a road there. So there would be certainly, it's your choice, your property. You decide what you want to do from here then too.
All right, I'll report to Quick Trip and let them know, and then they're really running the show because they've got the option on the property for another few months. So it's up to them what they want to do.
Understood. All right, thank you.
I'll report to, talk to them, and then I'll get back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pacino.
Next on the agenda, yet number 2, was a request by the petitioner Ross Paulus, the owner of Deuce's Sports Bar and Grill at 11525 South Pulaski, to address the board regarding no action taken on an ordinance to approve an outdoor cafe after receiving an affirmative 5-to-1 recommendation from the Planning Commission on November 8th, 2023. Deuces agreed to close the cafe at 10 p.m. instead of 11, and to meet all the requirements cited by the building code for compliance. Ross is with us tonight. Ross, you want to come up a minute? Trustees, I know I put this on the agenda. I forgot what date that was, but I put it on for an approval of the special use permit. No motion was made to approve or take action of, or a vote of any type was taken, and our attorney has reminded me that certainly when we get a positive recommendation from the Plan Commission, the petitioner is at least entitled to a decision by the board, whether it's to grant a yea or nay in this case. So before we take any questions, Ross, did you want to make a comment or anything?
Good evening, Board. As the Mayor just mentioned, during the last zoning board meeting, I did get approval from the board to proceed, that we were able to open a patio along with the recommendations from the board as far as the fence and square footage that we would need to provide. I did also put a petition together in the last week and put it at our location, showing support for us to open and have a patio, which we previously had 3 years, for the previous 3 years. As I mentioned before, we meet from parking to square footage to all the different requirements that the village needs in order to have an outdoor patio. We've met all of those, and the zoning board was in agreement with that. So I was a little puzzled as to why it was never brought in front of the board for a vote. I was under the impression, I was informed, that if the zoning board gave approval, usually the board follows their recommendation. So we're here today to see if there's any questions or anything else I can.
Ross, can I see your petition
Sure.
for a minute? Thanks.
There's 500 signatures.
Oh, okay. Ross, can I ask, I see some of the addresses and stuff that, might be Alsip, Marina Park, let's say Chicago, Tinley, you name it. Who, can I ask, where did you solicit your
These are all
signatures?
patrons. This is in
Okay.
1 week's time that we actually had at our location. We actually put that together on Tuesday, the last week, and we asked our patrons for their support, and we received almost 500 signatures
Okay.
in less than a week. Again, the purpose for the patio is nothing more than to allow someone to have a meal or a cocktail outside. It's not to engage in any kind of loud music or bands or loitering, anything like that. As I presented previously, we'll even provide security, keep the area clean. There's no speakers outside, and we've never had any disturbances in the past with regards to the patio.
All right. Trustees, did you have any questions for Mr. Paulus?
I'm just trying to remember the discussion that was had previously, and I believe Chief Miller was present in the room, if I'm not mistaken. But I think some of the concerns were around public safety, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if you can, if you remember, if you had conversations with Chief Miller regarding this.
I believe it had to do with, number one, the patio being in a multi-use parking lot, to where what kind of barriers are in place preventing someone from driving through the cafe or whatever you want to call it that's attached. There was an issue also about parking in the general area, because it's in the middle. It's at the end of a block of multi-dwelling homes that parking is already scarce, and as more people come in to use the facility, they're taking up residential spots as well. And by putting that patio in, you're taking up parking spots that people otherwise have to find parking within the block.
And I'll admit, one of the areas of concern I had was the fact, I mean, as you just mentioned, it is a multi-tenant building, so it's not dedicated space strictly for a single unit. It belongs basically to the entire strip mall. And then one of my major concerns is the fact that the patio, as it stands right now, is blocking an area of ingress and egress. I mean, you can definitely see the curb cuts there intended to be a driveway, but you cannot access that driveway because of where the patio is at. And then when you take a look at it then, and I don't know why it wasn't mentioned during the planning and zoning meeting, but because of the way the parking lot is then configured, if we have to take one of the big fire trucks or ambulances into the back of that building, they can't turn around. There's no way for them to then get back out because we're blocking the driveway. So those are my concerns.
So if I can respond, there actually are two entrances. One is off of 115th, and then there's another, if you can drive right out through the backside of the parking lot, and then there's another drive that goes perpendicular to the parking area. So there are two driveways, and as far as the parking spaces, this patio is going to encompass 3 parking spaces. As we've made in the previous presentation, there are 36 parking spots that are available, and usually the other businesses that share that location are closed in the evenings. They typically close at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So there's never been an issue with any of the other tenants in the property regarding parking.
We did do it, I physically did it just to be sure, but we did do a chair count based on ordinance that we currently have, and it did meet that criteria. Building commissioners here, Roger, were you, Crouch, can you grab my mic, please?
So one of the requests that I made before the planning and zoning gave the final, one of the caveats was basically the same as what we did for fire, water, and TBK, which is 4-to-1 on the parking, which would give them ample seating and ample parking, as long as it stayed under 1,200 square feet and they followed all of the ordinances for the 6-foot and 2 means of ingress and egress, with the gates swinging outward, and any lighting would have to be put out, which Mr. Poulos did agree to do all of that, which is why he received a 5-to-1 favorable vote.
Okay.
If I can just state one more thing, there are at least a handful of other businesses, from El Coyote to Nino's to Dakota's to TBK. All of these other businesses all have patios, and it would put us at a competitive disadvantage not to have an 800 square foot patio in the back, which is going to seat 20, 25 people at most. That's all we're looking for. And in the past it never was an issue, and I presented in front of the board. I've answered all the questions. I've met whatever requirements have been asked. So I'm here asking for approval so we can move forward with this.
I did have a comment the last time Mr. Poulos was here regarding security. We did have a tenant of one of the neighboring buildings approach the board with concerns about, let's just say, unfavorable behavior going on afterwards. And I know it's not on you to people do what they want when you're closed, and you're closing the doors at 10 when it's within your rights to have it open till 11. But she was pretty adamant about the unruly behavior that was hanging out in the parking lot, after hours. So Again, I don't recall what the answer was, but certainly I think it would help your cause if you had some type of plan to mitigate that type of behavior when you are closing up, or certainly request that your patrons disperse, because it is it's a residential area, out in the back there, east of your building.
And we would be happy to add more security if needed, and to make sure that people do not loiter after hours. Again, we haven't really seen that that's been a problem. It's happened on a couple occasions from what I've been informed, but we can definitely police that more, and if I need to put up signage or add more security to make sure that the neighbors aren't troubled and there's no loud noise, that's something that we'd be happy to comply.
Yeah, Trustee, that was a 2 a.m. issue where they had to call out PD to have folks leave the lot. They were loitering basically out there after hours.
How late is the liquor license at that facility?
2 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, usually, like last call is probably 1:30, right?
That's Fridays and Saturdays.
Okay.
The caveat that was recommended by the planning and zoning was that the outdoor patio did have to be closed at 10 o'clock.
How late do you serve food, sir?
10 o'clock.
10. That's inside and outside.
Inside and outside. On Fridays and Saturdays, it's midnight.
Okay. And you're proposing to close the patio at 10 p.m. on weekends as well?
Correct.
Okay.
So typically, any other questions before I say what I was going to say? Yeah.
When we last spoke about this, I brought out numerous instances of the calls for service that the police department's responded to. And also the fact that you keep on saying that you've operated this for that period of time when it was allowed, but the reality is that you were shut down. And for 2 weeks, the police department kept on going there after you were advised that you could no longer lawfully operate that. And one circumstance, your manager responded that she wasn't aware that they had been shut down and couldn't do it. So the requirement was a 6-foot solid perimeter around this. You've never had that. And you said, oh yeah, we'll be willing to do it. And you're saying a lot of things now about what you're willing to do. The fact of the matter is, when you were presented all this before, you never did it.
We've never been presented this.
Well, all right,
We received a permit. We operated in the same patio area since I took the business over and prior to my ownership. Once we were informed that we were not allowed to have the patio as I presented previously, we closed the patio immediately. The mayor informed...
2 weeks, sir. You went to municipal court on those.
We received the fine that...
How'd that happen?
We had a permit from the village. I went to the village, to Roger's office. I received the permit in May from the village for a patio. We operated the patio. I had no idea that that permit was not properly issued. Once I was informed, I had someone come and issue me a fine for the patio, and I showed the permit, and they said that permit is null and void. So when we went to court, we were told that we did not have zoning for the patio. Then we closed the patio. We received a $1,000 fine. We closed the patio, and then I proceeded to go through the proper means. I never operated the patio. It was never an issue before. We never operated the patio outside of whatever the approval was from the village up until that point. That's why we're here today.
So, Raj, and just so, because again, we tape all these meetings, If you just reiterate one more time, what happened with that? With the issuance of that particular permit?
I was off on a Monday. I believe it was a Monday. Mr. Pools came in. The girls, he filled out the paperwork, and they were trying to do their due diligence and get it in and get it out, as I try to do. They did not know that he would have to go through planning and zoning for that. So he was issued a permit, hypothetically, for that. Once I came back and I didn't realize it for 2 weeks, I then made Mr. Pools aware of it, and then also the police department aware of it.
Which, obviously, is, we just heard the rest of that. I was just trying to reframe where the conversation came from. All right.
And go back to the trustee's point, there's a curb cut and access point, and this patio is going to sit right in the middle of that driveway. And to stop a vehicle from coming in to that, or through the parking lot. And all these parking spaces that you say are ample, what you're doing is you're referring to the village-owned parking lot as your source of sitting there and doing. So you're going to take away parking spots not only from yourself, but from all the tenants in the rest of the building for your purposes, and then push those people to the other areas. It's going to be placed inside of a residential area. You got parking, an apartment just south of it, and an apartment just east of it. It's not a good location. It's not a good plan. And with regards to the fire equipment, without a doubt, you can get a car through there. Probably get an ambulance through there. If they go in there with a larger piece of equipment, those guys are pretty good. But you got power tension lines along adjacent to that roadway. So.
I would agree with Trustee Dizelle to state that a fire apparatus would not make it through there on the rear of the property.
There are also access in the front of the property as well. There's an entrance and an egress, and if there was ever that situation, the fire department would be able to access the property easily through the front.
Right. And depending upon where the fire is, that's where they go. Mm-hmm. So if the fire's on the east side of the building, that's where they're going to go.
Again, our property is approximately, 2,500 square feet. So they would easily be able to access any point in the business from the front of the property. Okay. And I did speak with the landlord, and I have his complete approval to move forward with the patio. He has no issues. He spoke to the other business owners in the property, and they don't have an issue with it as well.
The owner did provide a letter stating that it was, Howie Chanowski did provide us with a letter stating that he was okay with the Deuces putting in that patio area.
Do you think it had anything to do with because he collects a lease?
I would have to agree with that statement.
Something that comes to mind as everyone is sharing their thoughts is that there were some examples of other restaurants that have patios, such as El Coyote, but they're a standalone building. And then another is Burrito Jalisco, but I believe they have that whole shopping center now, right? They own that entire strip. So it's like one owner, or a standalone structure. And then, are there any other examples within the village of a property with, along a strip mall?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. They're all sole proprietor. They're all sole owners.
Okay.
When I say in either of those cases, are they beer gardens? I mean, we're talking
Good
about
point.
an outdoor picnic table at one location, a couple of bistro tables at the other, neither of which are an outdoor beer garden.
That's essentially what we're asking for, is a couple tables just for people to have a meal. We're not, the designation that this is a beer garden, I think, is not accurate. It's a patio area for people to be able to have a meal and a drink, and very similar to the places that you just described.
So again, trustees, as I said, I put this on the agenda once before. No action was taken on this to approve a special use permit for this particular use. And before I just place this on an agenda again, I'd like to see if there's support to do just that. So, Madam Clerk, I'm asking again if we can
Mayor,
take...
just put it on the agenda.
Well, I'm not going to have I'm not going to spend attorney money to draft something unless...
Don't have them draft anything until after it passes or doesn't. Once it answered, then we'll put it for a vote next week.
I just, like I said, I don't want to, I did this once before, and what I'm saying, though, is I did this action once before, and nobody took action on it. I mean, I might, Ross, I'm going to have at least, I'd like to think I have at least one more trustee in the room at the next board meeting. So let me take it to a vote, not just because of what Trustee Dalzell is saying, but I'd like to get as many trustees as I can involved in this process yet, too. Okay? This way, like anything else, it increases the odds if there is any negativity involved here with this, it's only going to help you at the same time. Okay? So let me, I've already got one drafted. I might have to have it modified and stuff yet, too. But it speaks to the language, it's basically the same language, different dates. All right?
Okay.
Okay.
So that would be at the next meeting?
Next
or-
week.
Next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next, we had we'll go to Village Properties. Kenny, I'm sorry, I apologize. Ken Hobold from HRE Property Management's with us this evening. Trustee McLaurin, if you want to introduce him.
All right, well, first I'll start with, everybody should have within their packet the HRE Apartment Management 3-year overview that Ken put together for us, talking about the various projects that they've done in the last 3 years. And then next, Ken is here to talk about what's going on and give us the status of things.
Oh, Ken, you know what? I gave her, oh, go ahead. What do you got? Okay, all right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Ken.
First of all, thank you all for taking time to allow me to come in and talk to you guys today. When we took over as property managers 2.5 years ago, we recognized there was 5 components of the Heritage Apartments: ownership, office, the maintenance team, the tenants, and the vendors. Our goal was to improve communications, processes, and efficiencies between all components. I believe we've done this, and I'd like to share with you how we did this. As far as the team goes, we increased individual team members' accountability by conducting daily meetings and reviewing assignments. We improved communications with an open door policy. We conduct biannual individual meetings to discuss any issues in a private setting with all the employees. We established a workflow board to let the entire operations team know the status for which the units are under rehab. So anytime you can go into the board and take a look at it, so you know exactly what needs to be done at what time. We promoted individuals to a chief and assistant chiefs. This allows for effective communication and workflow. We reassigned team members to new properties to educate them on both properties, Heritage 1 and 2. We added an experienced real estate professional as a leasing agent. We improved communications with SEIU Local 1. We conducted team building exercise day that included working at Saratoma, lunch, and bowling together. We regularly receive compliments on our teammates, and we even have a say hello to our tenants policy. Technology. We implemented Appfolio to improve work order efficiency, record keeping, and reviewing. Also, this allows for rent tracking for all 512 units, creates reports and statements. We implemented Active Answer, which streamlines communication process for all call-in requests. This allows for less personnel involved in direct tenant communications. We recently started rolling out On the Clock, which is currently a timekeeping software for accurate record keeping for hours and paid time off for our union employees. We have robocalls, which allows to call tenants individually or collectively to communicate events, such as shutdowns or different events that are going out, whether it's one building or the entire, both properties, and as well. Vendors, we changed some of our vendors from when we started, allowing for cost-effective savings, improved efficiencies, better overall performance, and response times. 2 of our vendors attend our Monday morning meetings on a regular basis. Every Monday they attend. As far as the tenants, we created an online portal for paying rents and reporting work orders. We publish a quarterly newsletter. We host safety meetings with the Alsip Police Department. On May 1st, we had over 100 residents attend the meeting. We create and distribute event flyers to all the buildings. And this year we had a holiday door decorating for outside vendors came in and did that. Miscellaneous. We implemented a new tenant screening process. We conduct open houses for available units. Our rental collections, we've collected to date 99.9% of all rents that were due to the village. We currently have only 4 units under rehab and 2 available for lease. That equates to almost a 99% occupancy on there too. In your packets, you can see that the national average for large buildings is about 86%. Granted, now there's a lot of different factors that go into it, but we're at 99%. I would say we're doing okay. We work to avoid evictions. Thus, we eliminated larger legal invoices on there too, as well. We supply monthly reports, which are available for any of the trustees. Normally, Trustee McLaughlin gets it, but happy to supply those to anybody who would like to see those. We currently have a waiting list of over 100 potential tenants. Some of the capital projects that we completed over the last 2.5 years, we constructed 10 balconies at Heritage 2 and plan to do so 10 more this year as well. We replaced the roof on Heritage 1 Clubhouse. The hallway floors were retiled at Heritage 1. The hallways were all painted at Heritage 2. Basement windows and wells are currently being replaced at Heritage 2. We completed the Heritage 2 carpets in the hallways, and we replaced the signs at Heritage 1 and Heritage 2. In concluding, our implementation of technology processes and improved communications has resulted in an increase of revenues of 7.1%. In closing, I believe with HRE you have the experience of a Fortune 500 corporation with the attention of a boutique company. We would sincerely cherish the opportunity to continue as your property manager. Thank you for your time and consideration. Any questions?
Thank you,
Oh,
Ken.
thank you.
So just, trustees, I put this in the packet, but just as a reminder, there is a provision. First off, the management agreement expires end of September, I believe.
September 30th.
Yes, September 30th, and there is a provision in there that you can renew that, but the current contract once a year for the next 3 years if we choose to do that. Otherwise, we can certainly, if it's the board's wish, we can seek RFQs to requalify a management company. Before I add my thoughts on it, though, I'd like to hear any questions, maybe like Ken said to Ken.
No, thank you for taking the time. And I know I had mentioned this last board meeting, was it a week ago or 2 weeks ago, but I think it was last week, in regards to just having an overview and a recap, and it's like night and day, having the information just all put together. And in regards to residents' feedback, is there anything that you'd like to share, what they've seen with some of the changes, especially like with the payment system and so forth like that?
So in regards to the payments, as you know, as a senior crowd, they're not, I think about 28% of the people use the online payments on there too with the technology. Some of our residents aren't inclined to use it. I would think in regards to the overall happiness of the things, why we have 750 tenants, you can't make them all happy, as we all know, but I would think that a vast majority, I would say our satisfaction rate would be in the high 90s on there too. So I think our entire team, our office, our maintenance team, And their attitudes have changed a lot from when we took over. Therefore, if you have a happy workforce, and it should exceed into your clients and into your tenants, and we've definitely seen that.
And then in regards to the RFQ, what is best practice or what has been done before with expenditures in regards to a certain dollar amount? I'm not saying that we're not in favor of your organization and so forth like that, but just what's been done in the past.
When we qualified HRE 2.5 years ago, basically we went out to an RFQ to qualify management companies for the same source, and really it was just a matter of who can do what, and they were working, he's actually meeting the same financial criteria as far as what we pay his firm. We paid the previous firm that I know of, they were here with us for 33 years, but I don't know that it was ever like increased. That could have been even a starting point at some point then too, It's always been 6%. So, and again, Board, I don't want to discuss numbers out loud, certainly out of respect to Ken's profession and any other. It's foiable, it's public knowledge if necessary. I always want to remind everyone, though, too, that this is a segregated budget. That money really does not flow to the board, to the village, I should say. It stays at the Heritage Apartments. And I go over, I've engaged, I met with Roger and Ken in the last couple of weeks to do a recap of the fiscal 24 budget, and they did meet budget. You guys didn't exceed it. There was actually, at the end of the day, we came a little bit under, which was great, as opposed to what we took in rents and stuff like that, but we clarified a few issues that we had too, which some departments had the same problem. It's just coding things. Every business has one of those. It's like, what was that, a repair or was that or whatever and stuff. So we're getting that. We're tweaking a couple things. But I got to tell you, if I'm here every single day, and I meet with the residents just about every month over there and stuff yet too, and everyone's got a pretty good attitude. The residents, you've taken good professional control over everything that takes place there. It used to be years ago I'd show up and it was just like a session, and nowadays, you've made yourself available to the residents that they can ask for certain things, and I think for the most part you've met that. Roger's availability over there has been diminished for the most part. I mean, you're still our liaison. You still have to oversee our interest in those monies that go there and stuff then too. And moving forward, I think it's always healthy for us to sit down and just redefine who's responsible for what as far as, who pays what and that kind of thing. What I mean is the management versus the village, while we are the landlord. And, a couple of projects maybe haven't quite taken off on time. The big one I'm looking for to get done is the pool over at Heritage 1, because we did appropriate money for that, and we didn't get it done. Roger, you see us doing it this year?
We are working towards getting that done and completed early September, October, once we close the pool. We are working with a pool company to have the design sent to the state for their approval, and then the work to commence once the pool is closed.
Ken, when's the SEIU contract up for renewal?
They should have about a year and a half. October.
This was their
They've got
final rate. It was 3 years, and this was their final raise that they received on December 1st.
We need to look at that a lot sooner than later. I mean, these things take time sometimes. I know those negotiations are usually pretty smooth, but we want to really be involved in those there too. So
they will send us a letter probably the end of July asking us if we want to negotiate with or a part of ABOMA.
Mm-hmm. This is Ken's personnel. You're the one negotiating, but we certainly need to be apprised of what is for budgetary reasons. Is my point. I don't want to do any negotiating. I'm just talking. I just want to know what we need to do. That's all. That kind of thing too. So, trustees, go ahead. Any other questions for Ken?
Well, I was just going to chime in on something that you said, Mayor. As someone who has been to the complexes multiple times, meeting with the residents, one thing I do have to say is that they seem to be a lot happier. I mean, there were times of in the past of going to one complex or the other, where I would have residents drag me out to show me something that was broken and not getting addressed. And I have not had that happen since HRA took over. They just generally, again, used to get inundated, and I can recall meetings of just nothing but complain. And knock on wood, and say, I have not experienced that in quite a while.
Ken, I've got a lot of these. In fact, I just sent out notices to all the department heads earlier today, by the way. We do like an employee engagement every year. We try to find out what's going well for you and how things can work better in return. Do you see anything that needs to be addressed? Should the board decide just to keep everything status quo, maybe obviously renew the contract 1 year at a time or go for a new 3-year contract, whatever the choice is, do you see anything that we need to do more so in order to have a better relationship than we do?
No, I think that's one of the things when we took over, we thought communication was a big problem on here. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, between all 5 parts too. At a monthly meeting, we meet with Roger, and I mentioned the chief and the 2 chiefs. We meet once a month at the first week just to go through everything that's going on. So I think communication is really strong. And as of right now, a lot of when I mentioned that we do the one-on-ones meetings with everybody individually, a lot of the changes that we made, especially initially, came from those meetings on there and figured out different policies we needed to change, the technology that we brought in. So as of right now, I don't think there's anything. I think we're doing really well. I think we're running the trains on the tracks. We got it going forward. We don't have, we probably need, we need more units to rent out. So, I mean, other than that, we really don't, there's nothing that I could think of at this time that is any area of concern. But, as different factors come in the economy, if we control what we can control, I think we'll be fine on there, and I can see us continue to do that. But I don't think there's anything right now that I could, specifically say that, okay, if we had this, we can get to. I mean, we're at 99% occupancy. We have, all the rents are collected, and and the facilities look great. So I really don't think there's anything that we need.
Trustees, one thing I'd like to share as well, too. One thing that's over the last couple of years that Ken's been there, that's really been not just fiscally tasking, but what's really been hard on the residents as well, too. But they've been more, for the most part, they've been cooperative. Is we as a landlord taking responsibility for liabilities. Liabilities should be my middle name. I mean, I look at these all day long. And what I'm saying is that, say for instance, like even when we put down new carpet in the common areas and stuff then too, that was tasking to say that, and it was the right thing to do, which you guys did though too, is you didn't just throw carpet over like a bad hall where it had dips in the floor where there were trip hazards. And seriously, people would, because the floor is uneven, they're going to get hurt. You guys fixed them. You did it the right way. The same thing happened. We had a couple issues because of the design of the buildings. These were built in the 60s. Drywall was nailed, not screwed, to the ceilings and stuff. And we had to go back and physically re-secure all these kind of things and stuff then too, because we saw some flaws in all these kind of things. Sometimes even poured insulation gets heavy after a period of time, but with moistures and whatever else and stuff then too. We took responsibility for a lot of that kind of thing. We had displaced families, and you guys did a good job of doing all that yet too, is working with people. We didn't get a lot of blowback on our side and stuff, which is good, because that's always a measure of how you're handling things and stuff yet then too, is how many complaints that we receive over it, and I'll give you a thumbs up, Ken. You and Roger, your groups did a good job, and your maintenance guys are really starting to show up and stuff yet then too. You're doing a good job of maintaining. I go nuts. I had Roger in the office last week as well as you, Ken. Sometimes the chemicals that we use, I just go crazy when I see the cost of these things. But in hindsight, even when we were interviewing other management firms before we had agreed to work with HRE, they said the same thing. Those chemicals are very, very expensive for drains and so forth, and it's just a necessary evil that you have to do. So I'm good with that and stuff here too. But a lot of the invoices that I'm signing are for to improved infrastructure. So you guys are actually moving electrical service boxes. You're moving the plumbing, because we've had issues with plumbing that was underground that was unreachable because it was within the building. We were taking out bathtubs and kitchen sinks and everything else to actually elevate the pipes and everything then, too. So there's been a lot of things like this. So at least you had the right contractors in there. Notable guys, most of the plumbers are like from the area and stuff then, too. But you guys addressed what had to be and stuff then, too. And you expedited it somewhat smoothly yet, too. So thank you for doing that and stuff yet, too. So, yeah, I think you're doing a good job. Anybody else?
There was a list of the monies that were out there. I mean, there's zero spent in infrastructure improvements this year with $1.3 million budget.
Yeah, I talked to, go ahead, Roger, if you want to respond to that.
I believe what that was is, should have been coded contract rehab. I don't know how Joyce named certain things, but all the stuff that's under contract rehab would have been in those capital items or infrastructure plans.
Does an HRE code these based on the budget?
That is correct, and that is something that as soon as the mayor made us aware of it, Ken, myself, and Dan sat down and had a communicated that this is how going forward, they're going to get line items for the budget, and then we're going to deduct it completely, which did not happen this year.
Okay. Insurance bill for this year, zero.
Unfortunately, I do believe that the village was paying that, and not in the past Karen would take that out.
So
The money's there, but it was not taken out.
I want to jump in, so I want to address both those things. So, number one, as Roger said, that's accurate, because I want to say the first thing first, when you said the infrastructure, how we budgeted 1.3, yet rehab every year. And again, I've never, and every year, I mean, this year I was really all over this because we have new finance department and everything else. But when I was doing my fiscal year 24 recap, I brought both gentlemen and I said, listen, you only appropriated $696,000 for apartment rehab, yet every year prior, we budgeted like $1.1 million. So here we did less. And then Roger explained, well, no, it should have went to this. So in other words, even Becky had explained to me, they had always been told this, line item, what is it, 4310? Thank you, whatever. Yeah, it's like everything was going into that, and that particular budget went almost $600,000 over budget. And after I brought it to their attention, like, you're right, it should have been this one over here. So moving forward to fiscal 25, I will have that corrected and stuff. So we under budgeted, but at the end of the day, it shook out properly. And I had HR in my office today because trustee, I saw the same thing about the insurance, and it says that's a segregated account. We had Horton Insurance on the phone, and we are breaking out, so there will be an adjustment coming back and all that yet, too.
And then, let me be clear. In all the work that's been said and done, the references about HRE, everything has always been glowing praises. So I appreciate the work that's been done. My concern here is strictly the fact that I'm a Scotsman. And as a Scotsman, this is one of the largest expense contracts this village has. And I think it's only prudent that the village sit there and test the waters.
Agreed.
Nothing against you, your company, the work you've done, nothing but praises. And I hope it continues. But at the same point in time, we have to be right about the monies that we expend. And the fact that it goes to Heritage, it stays at Heritage, isn't used for us in the community, it's still Heritage's money.
I agree, and that was what I was trying to ask with my previous comment, just about what was done before and what would be best practice. And I agree with Trustee Dessel completely.
Trustee McGlowan, your committee, what do you want to see happen?
My thoughts on this is that, especially after the length of time that the previous management company was there, I feel like HRE came in, kind of like behind an 8 ball, just getting things up to speed. A lot of things were outdated, and just the fact. I recognize that. It took a while to get organized and really get going, and my my personal preference would be to go ahead and give them one more year on this contract and then consider going out to bid after the end of that year, which then, in my mind, just gives them more like 3 full years of really operating the complex, as opposed to that first year, which was kind of a learning year.
Would you want to take that to a vote next week to request approval for a 1-year extension then?
I mean, that's my thought on this, and I mean, we can put it to a vote and see what happens.
Well, you got one of your committee members, and Trustee Navas-Esparza is here as well, too.
The perspective that I'm coming from is I'm a real estate professional myself. I'm a licensed broker, and it is all about demonstrating your value, right? And that's what the RFQ in essence is asking. And if there are others that throw their hat, and we still believe that your organization is a strong candidate, then the village can always decide to move forward. Because in essence, it's the real estate services that you're providing, and the property management services as well, that we're going out and seeing if there's other candidates that can either excel in those services. But again, it's an RFQ and not an RFP. So the village still has the discretion, to my understanding, to decide who is the best fit.
Well, yeah, these are professional services, so we're qualifying somebody to manage a professional service for us.
Well, the fact that you do the RFQ, you're not stuck with the lowest qualified bidder.
Exactly.
That's where I'm going, right. So, Trustee McLaurin, I got to go back to you, because I don't want to just put anything on your agenda. I'd like to hear from you. What would you like to see happen?
I would like to proceed with the meeting on Monday with at least the consensus of which direction we want to go.
Okay. All right, then that's what we'll do. Monday night, hopefully we'll have even more trustees in the room yet, too, so we can hear from more people. But that's what we'll do, Ken. We'll go with a consensus Monday night, asking if the board wishes to seek RFQs for service or not. Okay, and if we don't, obviously it's an indicator we'll pursue, and we'll take it to a vote on whether or not we just want to renew the current agreement. Okay? Okay. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you for coming out, Ken.
Right. So we'll continue with our reports. We'll go back to starting back with mine.
Want her to finish this last one, just because that's the only thing left in there? Or was that kind of already said when he went through his thing?
No, that Trustee McLaurin, the clerk, would just reminded me. Let's see. Number 1 was a presentation by HRE. Number 2 was a request for RFQs. We're going to pursue that next week instead. 3 was a request for consensus,
Which is the same as number 2.
Yeah, that's what we're doing next week. And if you want to just finish up number 4, please.
Okay, number 4 is, everyone in their packet has the April activity report.
Thank you. We'll go back to my report at the beginning. We did hear from number 1, number 2, number 3 on your agendas this evening was a request made by Republic Services to request approval for a day change for the Alsip, Chippewa, and townhomes area located in the southwest portion of Alsip. The area is now currently being serviced on Fridays, and Republic wants to move this to a Thursday pickup. The change will free up more drivers on Fridays when the majority of Alsip is being serviced, and a door hanger will be attached to every home to notify the residents of the change and refuse collection date. Did anyone wish to express any thoughts on this, or did anyone have any problems with them making this change?
Can I move to Thursdays too?
What's that?
Yeah, I'd like to move to Thursdays as well.
Mondays.
I like Friday because I like a clean can for the weekend and stuff, but that's just me. But no, they're going to take responsibility for this, and certainly I'm not sure how quick. They did give me a flyer. Oh, I'm sorry, it's right here. This might be an example. I got to find out. They just put on here May 2nd, which is obviously past already, and I just got this on Friday, I think. But I'll talk with Ernie Lopez, our representative, to find out when they plan on implementing this. And we're going to we're going to do everything we can to notify these folks then too. So the map, and I put this in everybody's packet, was the Chippewa subdivision, and then the townhomes that he's citing here are, oh, I see what he's talking about. That's those townhomes that are right behind the country house, right on Route 83 over there.
83.
Yeah. So that's the two spots that they're identifying with. And again, if that means they're going to give us more trucks in our community, in the base of the community on Fridays, that's wonderful. It's the more the merrier. That's always been kind of an issue. They've always been a little bit thin, and it's not just the manpower all the time. What I understand, it's even to do with the yards that accept the refuse. They can only handle so much garbage, and once they're full, they shut those yards, and now the trucks can't come or go anymore and stuff then too. So that was that. And then,
I say it used to be way back when the different parts of town had all kinds of different pickup dates.
right. Number 4, I'm going to
Something
pull.
like that wouldn't bother me either.
Right. Number 4, I'm going to pull from this evening. This was kind of a late notice to that requester, and we'll put that on for another date. We'll go to our clerk's report. Clerk Harding.
Thank you, Mayor. Of the presentation of the April 2024 FOIA report, there were 49 FOIA requests last month. The presentation of the May 6, 2024 board meeting minutes, and the presentation of the April 2024 IDOT motor fuel tax allotment in the amount of $68,561.24. And that is all I had, Mayor.
All right, thank you. We don't need an attorney this evening, and we don't have an engineer. Mike, did anything from our engineer that you heard today? No. Okay. No report from the engineer. Public forum, did anyone wish to address the board tonight?
Public left.
All right. Nobody? Then we'll go to our standing committee reports, starting with Finance and IT. Trustee McGlohan.
Thank you, Mayor. As usual, I will have the list of payroll and accounts payable for approval next week. And then item number 2, I have a request to approve a PTAB Property Tax Appeal Board settlement of the subject property located at 3210 West 131st Street from a fair market value of $5,086,878 and utilizing a 25% level assessment to pay $1,268,880 to now have a fair market value of $3.9 million and be assessed at $975,000 annually. The petitioner requested a fair market value of $3 million and only wanted to be assessed at $750,000. So this settlement is fairly in between. School districts 130 and 218 have already agreed to this settlement. And then finally, I have a request for one summer helper to be hired and assigned to the finance department for 14 weeks at a rate of $15 per hour. Mayor, do you know if it's intended for that to be a full-time summer person?
No, just the typical part-time that we use.
Okay, because I was going to say traditionally the finance has only ever had a part-time summer helper as opposed to a 40-hour-a-week summer helper.
Well, no, it'll be I apologize. Yeah, they used to have 2 that were up there, but she's asking for 1.
No.
Yes. The last 2 years they've been 2 up there. Right. It was a brother and sister, actually.
Not full-time.
Yeah.
Okay, not approved then.
No, actually, we actually got them through a program through Cook County. Wasn't that the case? Cook County was actually paying them through a youth program that we had up there and stuff. But the finance director asked for 1 part-time person to help out with the, well, we call them part-time as their summer help, but it's a 40-hour, 14-weeker. It's the typical we do everybody else. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the last couple of years we had a brother and sister up there, but the other was through a program Becky worked with Cook County Youth Program. I believe they paid them.
Previous to that, they did have at least a minimum of 1 for 40 hours a week.
Okay.
Yeah, Joyce never used them at 40 hours a week.
I don't know, yeah. Anything else, Trustee?
No, that's all I have
Okay.
this evening, Mayor.
The fire report, Trustee Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a motion to approve Chief Szynski to attend the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association's annual symposium in East Peoria, Illinois, from May 21st through May 23rd at a cost of approximately $535. The symposium provides training to chief officers of the fire service throughout the state. Chief Szynski is currently the president of the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association, and this is one of the required events as being president. This symposium is always budgeted for.
But we don't have a budget yet.
So I know he submitted that, but you're not making a motion this evening, it's for next week is what you're talking.
Well,
The thing is,
I think he's
next
looking
Tuesday,
for a motion because this is on May 21st.
So,
the meeting would be on the 20th, so maybe it,
so you're looking for a consensus then, to approve that. Is that your ask?
I suppose it would be.
Yeah, because we don't have motions on committee day. So it would be, Madam Clerk, you understand, it's going to be a consensus to approve this action that the trustee just described?
yes. Okay, roll call number 2 for consensus. Trustee Dalzell?
Yes.
Trustee Juarez Mendoza is absent. Trustee McLaughlin?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Navas Barza?
Yes.
Trustee Peretta is absent. You have your consensus.
Thank you.
This is the last one, though, right? Well, I meant he doesn't get to go next year if he's going to be retiring.
I suppose.
Not on the village's time.
Right.
Trustee Murphy, anything else?
No, sir, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We'll go
Just
to-
out of curiosity, Mayor, since we did have financials on HR, have you seen any preliminary type numbers for the fiscal year that just ended?
Any kind of what numbers?
Preliminary financial numbers, because,
well-
the board hasn't seen anything in quite a while, and I was just thinking in particular, in terms of the expenses that we've had in fire in the last year, and just wondering how we came out.
It actually shook out to, Roger, what we looked at the other day was, it was
Are you talking
under budget.
heritage, or are you talking fire?
I was thinking fire, because that's what we're on right now.
Right.
And I said, we've had a lot of different surprises over the course of the year.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying, too. So when it comes to fire was actually 300 under budget, 300,000 under budget, but that's only because we didn't buy an $800,000 fire truck.
So without that, they would
So
have
they were actually
been
500 over. Right. And I want to explain that real quick, too. Part of the reason that went so far over was that we only forecasted $400,000 for the GEMT ambulance money, which we get dollar for dollar. And so we were, instead of spending $400,000, they billed us $700. So $300,000 went to that payment. That goes to the state. So so if we gave them 7, means we took in 1.4. Okay, so in other words, the forecast was bad, and then overtime went over by about $175,000, and then I believe it was the vehicle maintenance that we all know exceeded too when it came to replacing an engine and a few other goodies. That's what drove it to the 500 number. Otherwise, had we bought that truck and had the forecast been better, the budget would have looked much better too, because he was under budget for many other things too.
But if the forecast expense was, in essence, doubled, our revenue should have been doubled as well.
Right. Well, again, it was it was an inaccurate forecast is what it came down to. We know more now, and this will be looked at closer. In fact, I've been asking about them ever since then too. I'm like, okay, that's what in most cases, most people, we do an appropriation budget. We know that right now, and the chief said he still hasn't gotten a statement from the ambulance collector to tell us what we should be forecasting. So I'm all over this, believe me. And the same thing with the insurance that we talked about earlier for Heritage. But a good question though too. I appreciate it. Thanks. Next, we had the Public Work and Boat Launch Committee.
You skipped police.
Police. Next.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I was just doing line. Police and traffic safety.
I'm around just for it.
Huh?
No report.
Yeah.
Anything, Chief?
No, everything's good, sir.
Thank you.
Chief, how's it going with the training with the new body cams?
We're still in learning mode with it, so it's going to be a big adjustment for us. Just like
Okay.
any new technology that we implement, we're finding there's some hiccups. Redaction seems to be a very time-consuming issue that we're going to have to probably tackle somehow, either various as team or we have to move some things around.
Okay.
So, like I said, we don't have to love it, but we're going to have to learn to like it because that's the reality that we're in going forward. As far as that, we have people that are just finishing up FTO in the next month, so it'll be good to get some new bodies on there. Antoine, who's in the academy, is doing well, so full steam ahead. We're got a couple special projects going, still working on with the help of Becky, trying to figure out the power issue at 127th Cicero. No one seems to want to take. I see our power pole that I need. No one wants to claim the power pole.
It's
Either
like
IDOT
an
or
IDOT
ComEd.
thing? Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it's ComEd.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm excited. We're still implementing some more cameras. We're using LPRs to great effect, so full steam ahead.
Chief Miller gave us a quick tour of some of the trustees. We were up there last week, your surveillance. Great job, Chief. You guys are really doing a nice job. Trustee Elzel, anything else?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Public Work and Boat Launch Committee.
I have the presentation of the April 2024 Public Works Monthly Activity Report. And next I have a request for approval for the Public Works and Water Department to be awarded new uniform company Vestas effective July 2024. And that's all I have, sir.
Mike, any change in uniform, or are you guys just going with the new cleaning outfit?
Just a new company.
Okay. Okay.
Mayor, do we have a uniform company that services the entire village, or are they all separate? Like a preferred vendor?
Well, let's put it this way. Chief, police and fire, they do their own uniforms. We don't use a service for that, right?
Yeah, police have always laundered their own.
Yeah. Okay. And Mike, how many companies are you using? Just one right now? Okay. Roger, how about you?
We're purchasing our own, and then
You do your own laundry?
correct.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a laundry company?
Yes.
Okay, I understand. All
Right.
right,
Mike? Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Next, we have the sewer and water report. Trustee Navis Barza.
Thank you, Mayor. I have the request to approve and advertise a job description for the position of Water Commissioner, as the current Commissioner has given notice of retirement effective on 9/30/2024. And there is a job description in the packet, and one question that I do have, Mayor, is has HR had a chance to provide any feedback with the current description or any recommendations for changes?
The current description was actually oversaw by the current water commissioner, because he's actually out of town right now.
Okay.
But he had input into it, so it was actually, he edited some of
Okay.
this and put some more content in there.
Okay, so this is the final that's in the packet?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, what's in the packet needs some grammar corrections, so it needs to be looked at before it actually
Oh,
gets
no worries.
posted.
I'll have somebody go through it tomorrow to make sure. Okay.
Especially the opening paragraph.
All right. Yeah, like I said, between HR and Danny Trivan, they were both handling that and
Yeah,
stuff.
no, I just want to make sure it doesn't get posted as it is.
Right.
Yes, that's why I asked if it was final.
Oh, no problem. No, I'll go through it tomorrow. No problem.
That's all.
Okay. And then, folks, trustee, I got this 4:55 this evening, and we were talking a couple weeks ago. I actually saw the folks from the Southland Water Agency when I was down in Springfield, April 17th, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Jay Winsma. We saw each other in the Capitol building, and I just wanted to share this with the Southland Water Agency. He said, a few weeks, well, when we saw each other down in Springfield for lobbying, he was down there working on funding with the Southland Water Agency. It is anticipated that the upcoming state budget, which will be completed in the next few weeks, will include a substantive funding for the project. Every senator and state rep that we met with acknowledged the importance of the project and offered their full support. In addition, the Southland Water Agency has received favorable indications from multiple members of the U.S. Congress for funding for the upcoming phases of the project. We anticipate receiving official news of an award in the coming days. With these efforts, the Southland Water Agency is expecting to secure at least $3 million, but could result in an amount as much as $30 million. These funds will be utilized for land acquisition, securing easement, rights-of-ways, doing geotechnical studies, conducting preliminary engineering, and doing utility surveys along the 40-mile transmission route. As soon as we hear official word on funding or awards, I'll be sure to share that with you and your board. Kindest, Jay Winsma, and Jay's the village administrator for the village of South Holland. So, like I said, I saw Jay down in Springfield, and I got this tonight. We'll keep moving. Building and Health Committee.
Trustee Dalzell or McLaughlin.
No report this evening.
Okay. Human Resource and Insurance, Trustee Murphy.
No report tonight, Mayor.
Okay. Special Committee Reports, Economic Development, Trustee Navas Barza.
Thank you, Mayor. I have, an update report from Nextsite Economic Development Consultants who are attending the annual ICSC Recon Conference to promote numerous properties within Alsip. Nextsite shared that interest rates, construction costs, and cap rates have and continue to be headwinds, but they are starting to see signs of improvement. And there was a memo that was included in the packet. I won't read it word for word. Just updates in regards to conversations that different parties have had in regards to some available properties here in Alsip, and also the attempt by Nextsite to attract national chain retailers as well. Not sure if there's anything else that Nextsite shared with you, Mayor.
No, I just passed that along to you. And I did get an email over the weekend from another reliable source that said there is corporate interest right now in the LA Fitness, so hopefully something comes around. Did you hear that too, Raj?
Yes, I did.
Good, okay. All right.
And that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Trustee. We'll go to Village Properties, Trustee McGlaughlin. Oh, we already covered that.
We already covered that one.
Anything else, Trustee?
No, not this evening, Mayor.
Okay. Ordinance and Legislation Committee?
No report, Mayor.
Okay. And then Planning and Zoning and Licenses Committee?
I have a presentation of a list of licenses dated April 29th, 2024 through May 3rd of 2024. And that's all I have.
Okay. Anybody have any presentations, petitions, or communications they want to share?
I just wanted to personally thank Mike for the response. There was a large branch that blocked our roadway near where I live, and some of the neighbors and I were trying to move it and then also sweep and so forth like that, but it was just too big of a branch to to move on our own. So thank you for, I know that you were busy throughout the whole village as well, and you even mentioned that there was flooding, so hopefully you're well rested now after the storm. So thank you. Today's heavy rain. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody have any unfinished business?
I just have a quick question. Mike, I don't know if potentially you've heard anything, or Mayor. 127th Street, when the work on that bridge may or may not ever happen.
It's going to happen, but we've been told, Mike, it's still a supply chain issue over in Crestwood. They can't finish their work there first, right?
Correct. Yeah, my understanding is they're waiting for the work at Route 83 and Cicero to be completed first before they start the bridge.
Really?
Yeah, they've been waiting.
That project that's been going on forever and ever?
They're short parts. They can't finish.
Okay.
You know, I'll tell you something else, too, sir. I think it was last Thursday, or I'm going to say Friday, I was going southbound in the inside lane, in the left lane. I'm sorry, I was going northbound in the left lane. It just, as you come up to 83 when you're crossing, did you see how they moved the median out a little bit? Mm-hmm. That thing's about 4 to 6 inches out of place. Didn't you see that? I mean, you're going to see people, I'm surprised people aren't snapping tires on that thing already. It's actually positioned wrong. I don't know who did that, but it's not lined up with the street. The south side of the street is not lined up with the north. It's off.
Probably because the angle of 83.
I guess, but I'm telling you, people are going to be popping wheelies when they hit that thing and stuff yet, too. It's off. That thing needs to be moved a little bit west, because it's sticking into the right lane, it's sticking into the lane a little bit and stuff yet, too. But whatever, it's not us. I didn't design that. Any new business? Anybody want to discuss? we need to adjourn for a short closed session. We need to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity pursuant to 5 ILCS 120-2, Chapter 1. Can I get a motion and a second to do that?
Motion to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
Roll call number 3 to adjourn to closed session. Trustee Vezal?
Yes.
Trustee Juarez Mendoza is absent. Trustee McGlaughlin?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Nava Esparza?
Yes.
Trustee Peretta is absent. Motion carries to adjourn to closed session.
Thank you. The time now is 9:11 p.m. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we'll adjourn to this closed session right now. Thank you.